On Monday, we celebrated a man that built our society to where it is today. Without him, the place that we all live would look a lot different. Lots of people say that we shouldn't celebrate him, but the people that were here before Columbus were animals that used to eat each other and enslave others. Just looking at Columbus's diary, we can see that he didn't hate indigenous people at all. What he did was hate the fact that they enslaved people and ate people, which he found disgusting, which I find disgusting. Without him, we likely would not have anything that we have today, and we would not be living in a house. We likely would not even be living in cities. The only problem that he had was the fact that he didn't know how to govern, which is right, because he is a sailor, not a governor. This is the part of the story everyone takes out of context. He brought a lot of sailors to discover new land, and that he did do so. But the only downside about his bringing a lot of people is that the king at the time expected him to bring back a lot of gold. So the next place that he wanted to go to was New Mexico. If he didn't bring back some gold, then, quote, he would be derided as a failure and support would dry up. This made him stuck between a rock and a hard place. So he chose to keep his respect and developed a harsh disciplinary system to force indigenous people to deliver gold or cotton, or suffer an increasingly harsh punishment. But before he even got to the land, there were tribes, much like there is in Africa, and those very tribes that were there would always enter fights and steal each other's land. Much like the tribes that came before Columbus, he knew that this was the case, so he fought the tribes for the land and he won. This was common practice. Once he owned the land, he got to go and develop it into the land that we know today, and he got to go and give it to the king, and so on and so forth, without him actually sitting down and liberating the land and saying, nope, I'm going to fight you for this land. This is exactly what happens. I want the land. I have a bigger army. Let's fight, or what we can do is we can work together. We all know the story of what happened after that. He taught them how to farm so they wouldn't have to run away every single winter, and they taught him some valuable stuff and so on and so forth. This is exactly what we learned in elementary school. But of course, people want to forget exactly what we learned in elementary school because of the fact that we learned this in said elementary school. But the sad part is that now in elementary schools, we are not being taught the good side of Christopher Columbus. We're only being taught the bad side, and the bad side is most of the time not true. With that being said, we will keep on celebrating Christopher Columbus, and the only reason why we did not talk about Christopher Columbus this year was because of the fact that the Israeli and Hamas's war was going on, and the pictures that were being uncovered from that event were purely disgusting, and I had to speak out against it. With that being said, we're going to be digging into the headlines of the week.
Facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
Okay, so starting off with the Daily Wire article, we actually have survival of Israel Music Festival massacre. So Hamas was shooting and laughing, and they were having fun. A woman who attended an outdoor music festival in southern Israel last weekend that became the site of where hundreds of people were murdered in an Islamic terror attack said in an interview this week that the terrorists were, quote, laughing as they shot people. Shana Hana recounted her near-death experience during an interview with CNN's Caitlin Collins Wednesday night on The Source. Ohana hid for hours before Israeli military forces arrived on the scene, pushed the terrorists out, and rescued her and others. Around 6:30, I remember just a few minutes before I took a picture of the sunrise, before it was so beautiful, the bombs started. She said, at first, I didn't panic because the bombs it's something that unfortunately happens in our day-to-day life in Israel. So me and my friend just started walking back to our camp, taking our stuff, making sure everyone we came with was there. She continued, and then the police told us that we had to just leave everything and run. And things are bad. There were tons and tons and tons of bombs. She said that she and her friends got in a car and started driving out of the area where they were approached by men who appeared to be in Israel's military but actually turned out to be terrorists. She said that they tried to get out, though, a different area, but encountered the same issue, and they stumbled upon an area where a group of people in a bomb shelter had been massacred by terrorists, which is just disgusting and disturbing. She said the car she was riding in got hit multiple times with bullets, and that fortunately, no one in her car was injured, which is good. She said that she and her friends hid in bushes for 9 hours and heard nothing but non-stop shooting for the majority of time. We couldn't hear them talking. We could hear them laughing while they were shooting. We could hear the bombs because, she said, they were laughing, Collins said. They were laughing, always laughing, always shooting, and always laughing. Osana responded because you could hear them on their voices. They were having fun. They were like, yes, we finally did this. Every car that passes by, we could hear the grenades and the shooting, and it was just terrible. This is exactly what she said, and it's just disgusting. I mean, for her to go through this, she's probably going to need a lot of, real therapy. She needs to go through a lot of mental training, mental well-being tests. I would make sure that she has a support system in her life, because this thing, I don't know if I would be able to go through this thing, because now you're seeing people dead in your face. Like, I'm seeing it on Twitter, and I'm scarred. I had nightmares this week. So never mind actually waking up with PTSD from this event every single day. I could not imagine that. With that being said, we're going to be digging into another Daily Wire article. We actually have, it's kind of the same exact situation, but the White House is actually preparing evacuation flights from Israel for United States nationals. So this was actually published October 12th. Now it is October 13th now. So they published this a couple days after they had to. I just don't understand why they're actually worrying about the United States nationals now. Like, why are they worried about the United States nationals now after the shooting already took place? I mean, yeah, obviously the war is still going on now, but shouldn't they have worried about this on Saturday? Like, ASAP after this event happened and unfolded? It doesn't make much sense. The United States will start arranging evacuation charter flights for American citizens out of Israel beginning on Friday, as the death toll of Americans from Hamas terror attacks continues to climb. During a press briefing on Thursday, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby announced that the evacuation operations would start on October 13th, quote, to provide transportation from Israeli to sites in Europe for American citizens and their immediate families. The president has asked his team to ensure that we are assisting the United States citizens who do not want to leave Israel and providing them with a safe means of doing that, he said. Sources familiar with the matter told the Associated Press that the United States plans to send at least 4 charter flights daily. They are still working through some of the details of that to assist the United States citizens and their immediate family members who have, or for whatever reason, not been able to provide commercial transit out of the country. Kirby added, and I would add that we're also exploring other options to expand the capability of doing this, including exploring whether it's possible to help Americans leave by land and sea. On Saturday, Hamas launched a barbaric attack on Israel that has so far killed at least 1,300 people, including 27 Americans, and injured approximately 3,000 others. Another 14 Americans remained unaccounted for, according to the reports. Sadly, 5 more families have now gotten the worst possible news that any family can conceive of getting, and we're going to stay in touch with them as appropriate. Kirby said, same goes for those family members those are unaccounted for, and by unaccounted for, we mean that we do not know where they are, and they do not know where they are. The White House claimed a handful of Americans in the region were taken hostage by Hamas terrorists, so we're going to obviously stay in touch with that as well, Kirby also said. And certainly we're continuing to support the Israeli officials to make sure that we're getting as much context and information as possible that we will share with them. According to the Associated Press, the United States officials estimate between 160,000 and 170,000 Americans live in Israel, with an additional 500 and 600 in Gaza. On Wednesday, a State Department spokesperson told Forbes that officials are exploring different options for evacuating citizens, including by air, land, and sea to nearby countries due to demand for flights. The United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken traveled to Israel on Thursday to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and citizens. Blinken reportedly viewed images depicting victims of the Hamas attack, saying, images are worth 1,000 words. These images may be worth 1,000,000. Quote, it's hard to find the right words. It's beyond what anyone would ever want to imagine, much less, God forbid, experience. He said at a press conference in Israel, reported by ABC News, a baby and infant riddled with bullets, soldiers beheaded, young people burnt alive. I could go on and on, but it's simply depravity, in the worst imaginable way. Blinken traveled to Steve Grillen, Deputy Special Representative for hostage affairs who will reportedly stay in Israel to assist in recurring the hostages. The Americans missing or dead from the attack have not been identified as by United States officials, but the New York Times reported among them are a mother and a daughter from greater Chicago area, a recent high school graduate from Long Island, and a young adult who is among the 260 people killed at the all-night outdoor music festival called Supernova, also described as a peace party, near Kibbutz Relam, close to the Gaza Strip on Saturday morning. Yep, this was about 3 miles away from the Gaza Strip. So it's just disgusting just because of the fact that this event was close to the Gaza Strip. Now you have to risk your life and now you are dead because you decided to go to a party and dance. It's just incredibly sad and it's disturbing. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to the media's takes. So, moving on right with the media's takes, we actually have a CNN article. We have the arrival of migrants in big cities is forcing Democrats to change their immigration policies. Now, before we go into this article, we can actually see exactly where the Gaza Strip started and ended, and we can actually see where Egypt was actually protecting their citizens because of the fact that if you were to look at the border of Egypt and you were to look at the border of Gaza, you can actually see that their border is way more secure than our border will ever be, sadly. Okay, so if we were to look here, we can actually see Gaza, which also shares the border with Egypt, and to keep Gazans out, Egypt built a massive parallel wall and keeps a super strength steel underground wall. One wall is made of concrete, goes 20 feet high and underground. The other is stone. In addition to the above/underground walls, the area is patrolled by the military. There is only one checkpoint to get into the country and it's heavily guarded. So if we take a look at some of these pictures here, we can actually see that this is a huge wall, okay? Trump would be just astounded by this wall, okay? This is a 20-foot wall. This is guarded by military people that shoot you on the spot for coming through. This is built another wall behind it, and then there's a big concrete wall behind it, and then it goes 20 feet underground, okay? If you were to look at this huge wall over here, it just protects the whole entire Egypt from Gaza. Okay, and not only that, but also there's tunnels underground. So if Egypt actually wanted to go to Gaza or officials, all they have to do is go underground, and the underground tunnel is actually bulletproof. And then they can actually go right to the wall, and they can get their military right then and there. So the barrier made of bomb-proof, super strength steel, which cannot be cut or melted. So the barrier actually goes to 20 meters approximately underground throughout the wall. So this cannot be cut. They would have to go and dig more than 20 meters, which they're not going to do. So this is exactly what America should do. I mean, this is exactly what they have to do to defend their border, their sovereignty, and they need to make sure that other countries just don't even go into their country at all. But like we were saying at the beginning, we do have a CNN article to cover them. So the arrival of migrants in big cities is forcing Democrats to change their immigration policies. Now, the reason why I brought up their wall is because of the fact that we need our wall to actually protect our sovereignty in our country without letting the southern border just flow open with thousands and thousands of migrants at the same exact time, which go into inner cities and just take it over. So, moving with the article, President Joe Biden says that he's been forced to violate a campaign promise by adding some new construction to Donald Trump's border wall. Wait a second, so he's building the wall. Big city Democrat mayors are angrily demanding more engagement from the Democratic president to help deal with the wave of migrants seeking asylum. One of them, New York Mayor Eric Adams, is in Latin America this week. Immigration really is scrambling the normal immigration rhetoric and is uncomfortable ways for Democrats, who generally want to appear welcoming, but appear to be taking a harder line against, but appear to be taking harder long. I cannot talk. Immigration really is scrambling the normal immigration rhetoric in uncomfortable ways for Democrats, who genuinely want to appear welcoming, but appear to be taking a harder line along with their new positions. Why is Biden now behind new border wall? Well, here's how CNN White House reporter Elverds explained Biden's about face during an appearance on the network on Thursday. Alvarez, the boils down to the administration running up against a deadline. A source that I spoke with this morning said that the 2019 congressional appropriated funds for a border barrier had to be used by the end of the fiscal year 2023. That means that the administration had to make a choice. They either use the money or they don't use it, and they decided that they're going to use it for these border barriers in South Texas. Okay, so they had this money since 2019, but they decided to use it in 2023 after the fact that the southern border has now been just a big poop show. People are just forcing right through the border. They're coming into America. Now they're just deciding to use it after all of that. No, we should have did this before all of that. So, where will these barriers go? Well, Trump likes to claim that he completed a wall. Trump likes to claim that he completed a wall against the Mexican border. That's inaccurate. CNN's fact check team has documented Trump's effort to get a wall built mostly up, rehabilitating 373 miles of barrier. They added 52 miles of primary wall. Regardless, Biden, as a candidate, said that he would not add to it. Now his administration is targeting high traffic areas around Rio Grande. It's an area, Alvarez notes, where from October to August there were nearly 300,000 encounters between United States officials and migrants. This is exactly what Trump did when he built border barriers. Biden, like Trump, we need to waive dozens of federal laws, the Clean Air Act and Safe Drinking Water Act, among others, in order to build new barriers. But there are major differences between Biden's actions and Trump's. Again, from Alvarez, these are funds appropriated by Congress under the Trump administration, so they will be used in Pentagon funds. This is not what is happening here. In last month, the Biden administration sought public input from the community as they sought plans to put up the barriers. Still, this is a violation of Biden's pledge in the 2020 campaign to build no border wall and the latest public acknowledgement that the United States immigration policy is not open arms. Okay, so the United States immigration policy is not open to open arms, but there's a big but in front of us right here. They're still coming in. So it does not matter what your immigration policy is. It's like, no, I have a strict no bullying policy, but then you just let people bully. It's like, okay, does this even mean anything if you have a policy against it, if you're not enforcing the policy? What has changed? Well, at the border, a fresh tide of migrants has overwhelmed authorities this fall. The images include waves of people crossing illegally, stowaways on the roofs, and trains temporarily closed by the International Railway Bridge in Eagle Pass, Texas, last month. In northern blue states, governors and mayors are getting louder and more urgent in their calls for the White House to do more to stem the tide of migrants coming into the United States and being sent north. The failure of federal policies is now impacting the people of Chicago in a very dramatic way, said a frustrated Mayor Brandon Johnson in a news conference this week. Okay, so how about he does not have his city turn into a asylum country or an asylum state? Do not have an asylum state if you're not a border city, because you're not even going to need to deal with it anyway. So that's exactly when you're dealing with it, you get a few, like a 2%, 3% of the total coming into America every single year, and you're complaining. Never mind what Texas is going through in El Paso and other stuff like that. In Florida, they have people coming in from the water, just leaving their boats right there, and then the people that own the property that the boats go on have to pay for the boats to be removed because an immigrant just came into your land and came into America. So these are the things that we're dealing with all throughout America. And Joe Biden has been forced to actually do something about it because of the fact that we did good by sending the immigrants right to where the mayors are and the governors are in the Democratic states and cities. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker sent a letter to the White House demanding federal coordination to deal with people crossing the border. Who's in charge? The federal government is supposed to oversee border policy instead of the current system where migrants are bused north as a political statement by Republican governors. Yes, but it's working because of the fact that we're going to get change done because of the fact that the governors are actually doing their job. They're actually getting things done, and they're making the president realize his actions are not helping the American people. It's only making the American people's lives worse. That's exactly what he needs to deal with here. Okay, so moving on to the next article, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We have Scalise drops out of speaker race. So I thought that Scalise was not going to drop out only because they nominated him as speaker, and he actually got 213 votes. So even though he needed 218 votes to actually win, I thought that he was still going to run, but he said that there was no point in running unless he got 218 votes, which, yes, I saw this coming. But now Jim Jordan is the other candidate that we may see enter the race, we may see run. He's thinking about it, he's looking at it, and if he does not get 218 votes, he's probably going to do the same thing. So McCarthy's probably going to have to come back. If I were a betting man, which I'm not because I like to keep my money personally, but if I were a betting man, I would bet on McCarthy coming back. I would bet on that because McCarthy actually got elected, albeit after 15 times of voting, but he eventually won. Okay, and he was actually doing some good, some bad. Okay, but he was outnumbered in the Democratic field, so that's what we have to understand at the same exact time. But moving with the article, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise announced on Thursday evening that he would be ending his bid for a speaker after failing to muster enough support to win the gavel. In confirming the decision to reporters after making his intentions known to fellow Republicans in a members-only discussion, Scalise said that there are still schisms that need to be resolved. Scalise edged out Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan 113 to 99 in a secret ballot vote on the GOP nomination on Wednesday, but more than 24 hours later, a couple dozen GOP members either opposed him or were undecided. Once he withdrew from the contest as Speaker, Scalise said that he intends to remain as a majority leader and intended that he would push for a Speaker vacuum to be filled quickly as it has to happen, with Democrats united in nominating Majority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, for Speaker. Republicans can only afford to lose a handful of votes to secure the simple majority needed to secure the Speaker's gavel unless there is a bipartisan compromise. The House has been without a speaker for more than a week after Rep. Kevin McCarthy has voted out of the role on Tuesday. 8 Republicans joined the Democrats, citing objections to McCarthy's leadership. In securing McCarthy's ouster after Rep. Matt Gaetz got the process underway with a motion to vacate leading up to and after Scalise's exit from the race, some members suggested Jordan would ultimately be a more viable candidate. Jordan had the backing of former President Donald Trump and the GOP frontrunner in the 2024 presidential race. During the nomination contest, Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, Republican from Florida, listed Jordan along with some others' names as possible in the post to X on Thursday evening. Among the additional recommendations were Rep. Kevin Horn, Republican from Oklahoma, who had previously bowed out of the race for Speaker, Rep. Mark Green, Republican from Tennessee, and former Rep. Lee Zeldin, Republican from NY. Luna later added Rep. Brian Donalds, Republican from Florida, as another good option. There's a sense of urgency as Rep. Patrick McHenry, Republican from North Carolina, who is serving as Speaker pro tempore, is limited to what he can do in the temporary role at the time when Israel goes to war with Hamas after a terrorist attack over the weekend and a government shutdown possible by mid-November. Some have proposed empowering McHenry in a short term to get legislative business in motion. Others are pulling for McCarthy to come back, which I agree with. Democrats have floated the idea of entering talks to find a bipartisan path forward, which Jeffries reportedly suggested would include tweaks to the rules enacted in January to empower their most extreme members. So, if you're not going to come to an agreement, then the Democrats are going to take hold and they're going to say, no, you know what? The Republicans can't govern anything. I'm just going to take the place here and don't mind me. I'm just going to do this, this, and that. And our lives would be ruined. So, these Democrats are going to take control. They're going to say, no, these Republicans are doing bad for the country. And they're just going to elect whoever they want. And it's going to be an overall bad for society. So we need to get in there. We need to start winning these House speakership fights, and we need to actually get some legislation done in the Republican side here. With that being said, we do have another article. This is actually going to be the last article. We have a Federalist article. We have squad members were boosting Hamas long before it beheaded babies. So, Congress has turned a blind eye to the far left's dangerous and inappropriate partnership with Hamas front organizations. In the week of a brutal terrorist attack on Israel, members of the ultra-left wing, the Squad, in the United States House released public statements calling for a ceasefire in Israel. After terrorists went door to door on October 7th, indiscriminately murdering families and collecting hostages, statements from the Congress members, many of whom have pondered to pro-Hamas groups in the United States, effectively deny Israel's right to defend itself and suggest that the atrocities are part of a larger tit-for-tat cycle of violence. In other words, Israel had it coming, quote unquote, and should lay down and de escalate, quote unquote, in the face of a terrorism invasion by land, air, and sea. Even as Israeli hostages are being paraded naked and bleeding through the streets of Gaza. It's just disgusting. Yes, they're being raped really hard, and it's disgusting. It's inhumane, and it's barbaric at this point. Such call-us expressions represent the latest and most horrendous in a series of statements and political maneuvers from the far left wing of the Democratic Party, which has sought for years to single out and demonize the Jewish state of Israel. The same outspoken leftists have patricianed radical anti-Israel groups, showing favor to Islamic organizations and indefined in United States courts as possible fronts for Hamas. Reps Elad Omar, Democrat from Minnesota, Rashada Tlaib, Democrat from Michigan, Anaya Parsley, Democrat from Massachusetts, Cori Bush, Democrat from MO, and Jamal Borman, Democrat from New York, each published press releases and personal statements in response to the early morning raid by Hamas terrorists that took the lives of more than 1,300 Israelis, including 25 Americans, and resulted in more than 3,000 wounded. In each case, their comments began with empty platitudes for violence expressed on both sides, before they turned to casting blame on Israel in justifying Hamas's violence. Perhaps the most damning statements came from Olad Omar and Tlaib, who shared the privilege of being America's first Muslim woman elected to Congress. Tlaib, who is of Palestinian hostage, said Sunday that a peaceful solution must include lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, and dismantling the apartheid system that creates the suffering dehumanization conditions that can lead to resistance. Okay, so I'm going to just stop you right there. Okay, so just because of the fact that Hamas or the Gaza Strip is located in a bordered country does not mean that you're in an apartheid state. It does not mean that you're being discriminated against. It does not mean that you need to rebel and take part in raping women and beheading babies. It does not mean that you can go ahead and do that. So making excuses for people that are terrorists, going into people's homes, beheading babies, okay, doing disgusting stuff, eating their very food, shooting their dogs is not an okay thing to do. Going to music festivals and shooting innocent civilians that have nothing to do with the situation is not an excuse for what you are feeling. Just because of the fact that you are mad does not mean you can have a temper tantrum and run over a crowd of people and kill them. It does not matter, okay? You deal with this like we do in the 21st century with talks, okay? You need to sit here and say, listen, if I don't like the situation I am, then move. In 2008, they wanted that land. Israel gave them that land, and they said, okay, since you're going to stay here, we'll give you free electric and free water. They gave them free electric and free water. How do people not understand this? Free electric and free water was given to the Gaza Strip from Israel. Israel was giving them free water and free electric. How many times do I need to say this? For $0, they were giving their resources to the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip was not an oppressed country. It was only an oppressed country because of who was ruling it. That was Hamas. Hamas was voted in 3 years, 3 times over every single election that they held, because this is a Palestinian regime. Every time that they held an election, Hamas won. Hamas had the thoughts of the Palestinian regime, which is the fact that they do not respect their people. They do not care about human life. They just hide behind human life. They constantly build their hospitals underneath, or they kept building their military bases underneath hospitals and underneath schools and underneath civilian buildings, and they just hid behind those very civilians because they pretended as if we're going to care about their citizens more than they care about their citizens. It does not matter how many times Israel warned people in Gaza to leave, to flee. They warned 1,300,000 people to leave the country. They shut off the water to leave the country. They sent out these alert systems and shut off their electric and shut off their water to warn the people to leave. They actively sent out messages on exactly where to go in Gaza to escape the missiles coming in. They actively put out missiles that were empty shell missiles to merely shake the building to alert the people to leave. But they did not leave. You know why? Because they trusted their government of Hamas to tell them the truth about the matter. They trusted their government Hamas to tell them that Israel was lying to them and to then stay in the building for them to be used as just another prop so the media can go in and say, look at all these people that Israel killed. No, Israel worked very hard, time and time again, to tell those people to leave. They did not want to leave. They were trusting their government, okay? And these people know the fact that they're on top of these military buildings, okay? These military buildings are the target. These military buildings are exactly where government officials in the United States and government officials elsewhere target. They don't just target civilian buildings, excuse me. And there's no way in hell that there would ever be a big sign that says, oh, this is a Hamas government agency right here. Oh, this building right here. No, they're gonna hide it. They're gonna be underground. They're gonna be this way. They're gonna build it right under schools. It's gonna look like a school, but it's the military official office right underneath that very school. So it's just disgusting that they do this. It is. We can all agree at this, but we need to learn what their techniques are. Their techniques are to put their citizens in front of them, hide behind babies, hide behind our own people that they took hostage so that they can use them as props to get their way. That's exactly what they're doing because Hamas is a disgusting nation. And yes, they're dealing with the repercussions of their actions right now because Israel is burning them to the floor. And Israel should have every right, and they do have every single right to protect themselves. In 9/11, the United States was attacked. 9/11, 2001. United States was attacked. Okay, September 11, 2001. The United States was attacked by Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda flew planes into 4 different areas in America. In retaliation, America blew up 2 full countries. That's a retaliation that America goes through. So why isn't that Israel is attacked and on a greater scale as what 9/11 was? And I'll tell you why. Israel was attacked at a greater proportionate scale as what 9/11 was because of the fact that if you were to scale that for America, there's 9 million people living in Israel. There's 350 million people living in America. Maybe at the time, 300 million living in America at the time. So 1,300 people at least were killed in one day. In America, there was 2,200 people killed on that one day in 9/11. Okay, so if we were to expand that to the rationale that is in the proportion that America was at the time, we would say that that was 30,000 people killed in one day throughout the whole entire country of America. That would mean that this one day was greater than 9/11. So what are you talking about? The response that Israel has is just and justified. The response that Israel has is not enough. You do not negotiate with terrorists. We do not go to Al Qaeda and say, will you please stop doing this in the future? No, we obliviate them. We kill their leader, which we did under the Joe Biden administration with a drone strike. We kill their leader, we blow up their countries, and we say, don't mess with us again. This is your warning. This is your warning. Blowing up 2 countries and killing your leader is your warning. Do you want to see where NATO can go with this? No, you don't. This is exactly what Israel is going to do to Hamas. They're going to blow them to the floor. They're going to level them. And they're going to say, do you want to mess with us again? Because we can go. We can go if you want to. Iran, if you want to get yourself involved with this, which we highly, highly suggest that you don't, because it's going to be the greatest mistake of your life. If you want to go with this, America just moved military aircraft closer to Poland, which is a NATO-protected country. If you do want to go and get yourself involved, then America's going to get itself involved, and Poland's going to get itself involved, and Egypt's going to get itself involved, and all of these countries are going to be fighting if Iran gets involved. If Iran gets involved, then Russia's going to get involved, and that's going to be another world war. China's going to try to invade Taiwan because that's going to be the chance that is going to have. America's going to be distracted over there. So all at the time, there's going to be a world war. So does Iran really want to start the next world war? because that's going to be leveled to the floor. Hamas is going to be leveled to the floor. Russia is going to be leveled to the floor. Iraq's going to be leveled to the floor. All these places are going to be leveled to the floor, and Russia is going to be leveling Taiwan to the floor. So meanwhile, Russia can just invade Ukraine once more. So it's just too many things are happening at the same exact time, and this is by plan. Okay, don't act for a second that they did not plan this out. They planned this out. They know what they're doing. Russia, Putin knows what he's doing. The Iraqi military officials in Palestine knows what they're doing. Okay, they all know what they're doing across the world. They're doing it at the same time on purpose. Now, with that being said, we're going to just end off this video here in this episode here because honestly, I'm getting real tired of explaining this. I explain this every single day. Israel is justified in the way that they responded. I stand with Israel. This channel stands with Israel. There's not two sides to this. There's not, oh, well, because of this and because of that. No, not because of anything. Look at the videos. Look at the people being raped so hard that they're bleeding out of their pants. Look at these people that are suffering. Look at the people that were killed just for being at a music festival. These are terrorists that are in Hamas. These are terrorists. We do not negotiate with terrorists. With that being said, we're going to end off this episode here. If you did like this episode and you do want to see more in-depth policies and more in-depth views from me, view Monday's episode and Tuesday's episode where I broke down the whole entire situation in depth. Thank you all. And I did show some video in footage from Hamas, which Hamas released themselves, not Israel. Hamas released this video that I showed on Tuesday's episode themselves. So if you do want to see that, check out Tuesday's episode and Monday's episode. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for enjoying. If you did like this episode, please like and subscribe down below because I do post new episodes of the show every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.